The Nintendo Switch 2 has now been out for almost 2 weeks, and in that time we've seen all kinds of great ports, native releases, and exclusives come to the platform. But aside from Mario Kart World and Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, what other great games are there available to play right now before Donkey Kong Bonanza arrives? From super stylized futuristic racers designed to give you high-speed thrills, to interesting hybrids between tower defense and real-time action, we've been putting the console through its paces, and these are the 10 best Nintendo Switch 2 games you can play right now. Cyberpunk 2077. A game infamous for not being able to run on PS4 and Xbox One at launch, CD Projekt Red previously did great work with its impossible port of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for the original Nintendo Switch. That's why it's not surprising to see a fairly decent and totally playable rendition of Cyberpunk 2077 come to Nintendo Switch 2 on day one. Though not the most graphically impressive version, Night City as a location still appears beautiful when played in either docked mode or handheld mode on the Nintendo Switch 2's impressive LCD screen. Better yet, this version also includes the fantastic Phantom Liberty DLC, making Cyberpunk 2077 the full package on the console. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. Yes, this is an enhanced version of a 10-year-old game, but Yakuza 0 also just so happens to be one of the best entries in the long-running series, and coincidentally the best way to jump on board. Being a prequel that documents the early escapades of Kiryu and Majima within an 80s version of Kamurocho, this new Director's Cut is exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2 for the time being, and introduces a ton of improvements, such as additional story content and the new Red Light Raid multiplayer mode. Even without these enhancements though, seeing Yakuza 0's melodramatic events and arcade-centric antics run at 60 FPS on Switch 2 in handheld mode feels like a dream. This is easily now the definitive version. Survival Kids. Much more than just the obligatory children's game to go in tandem with a new console's launch, Survival Kids is a cheery and wholesome co-op adventure that also serves as a great entry point to the survival/crafting genre. Shifting giant logs, chopping wood, and using neat makeshift gadgets with friends is a recipe for calm and chaos in equal measure, it turns out, though it's also a routine that whips along breezily thanks to each of the game's bite-sized island levels. It won't change your life, but if you're a player wanting to enjoy wholesome crafting with the family, then Survival Kids delivers. Street Fighter 6. It used to be the case that if you were a fighting game on Nintendo Switch not called Super Smash Bros., you were forever maligned by genre fans as the worst way to play, compared to other consoles. Capcom, however, has clearly relished the challenge to bring the latest entry in its beloved Street Fighter series to Nintendo's hybrid successor, and the result is a surprisingly complete and smooth-feeling way to throw down with the likes of Ryu, M. Bison, and others. It helps that Street Fighter 6's awesome campaign mode returns in full force, supplementing arguably the best 3D fighting game currently available to compete it. Mario Kart World. The first original Mario Kart entry in over 10 years doesn't quite manage to cross the finish line with flying colors, yet it's still a great way to break in your Nintendo Switch 2 at launch. New driving mechanics such as the charge jump and grindable surfaces bring additional layers of strategy to the act of karting, while Knockout Tour mode makes trying to survive a 24-person race genuinely thrilling. Sadly, the actual world of the package doesn't deliver as much as you'd hope, but there are other ways Mario Kart World's sheer interconnectedness bears fruit. Mario Kart World is the same colourful racing action you know, brought to life using a fresh coat of creative paint. Split Fiction. When it comes to high-budget action adventures based around co-op, it's hard to imagine a better launch companion for the Nintendo Switch 2 than Split Fiction. Already a great two-player title that released earlier this year on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, the story of these two writers who get pulled into each other's sci-fi and fantasy worlds is instantly enjoyable when breaking off a Joy-Con and jumping in with a friend locally. It's a pretty good showcase of the graphical intensity the new device can handle too, as it's hard to imagine Split Fiction's frankly absurd and flashy delights running on an original Switch. Split Fiction is a game that every Nintendo fan deserves to play, and now they can. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Though it would have been easy to pay respect to the equally as brilliant Switch 2 version of Zelda Breath of the Wild on this list, it's 2023 sequel, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that fully comes to life on the new console thanks to a smooth 60 FPS frame rate and far higher resolution. Honestly, being able to use abilities such as Fuse and Ultra Hand without any stuttering or slowdown at all gives this more open iteration of Hyrule a new lease of life, making it much easier to enjoy one of the greatest Nintendo games ever made. Picking it up as a standalone on Switch 2 is a tough task due to price, but it's a no-brainer for players subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online or existing owners looking to upgrade. Fast Fusion. Developer Shin'en Multimedia makes its trademark early debut on a Nintendo console with yet another stylish and sleek anti-gravity racer, this time with the ability to fuse racing vehicles together. Fast Fusion feels like the best iteration yet, however, since the Nintendo Switch 2's 60 FPS capability in both split-screen and handheld mode does true justice to the franchise's high-speed racing antics. Combine this with another healthy selection of inventive tracks that span deserts, cityscapes, and more, alongside a pulsing soundtrack, and Fast Fusion is a great futuristic alternative to Mario Kart World. Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition. Having already tried to bring its beloved Hitman series to Nintendo audiences previously via ill-judged cloud versions, Agent 47's violent escapades are finally done justice in Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition on Nintendo Switch 2. This complete version bundles together almost all the missions and contracts from the entire World of Assassination trilogy, plus the new 007 First Light crossover event that currently sees Casino Royale's Le Chiffre able to take down for a limited time. It's not the most handsome way to play on the big screen, but being able to choke, snipe, and hide enemies in a series of inventive sandbox levels in handheld is a sheer delight. Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. One of 2024's most overlooked and underrated games gets a fresh start on Nintendo Switch 2 in Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, a different kind of fantasy RPG from Capcom that mixes real-time action with tower defense elements. You play as an ancient warrior tasked with protecting a princess, taking on waves and waves of grotesque monsters, trying to reach her by performing exciting melee combos and also controlling the battlefield by managing and assigning roles to troops. All this gels wonderfully in both the main campaign and the totally new survival-based otherworldly venture mode. Switch 2 owners should use this as an opportunity to not sleep on Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. Special mention, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. When Pokemon Scarlet and Violet first launched on the original Nintendo Switch, it was hard to ignore its technical flaws. A poor frame rate, unfathomable environmental pop-in, and poor draw distance all combined to make this latest generation of mainline Pokemon hard to enjoy. Fast forward to the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, however, and this souped-up version almost feels like playing an all-new game. Now running at 60 FPS with a clearer resolution, the colourful, widely open region of Paldea is a lot easier to get lost in. It's not exactly a Nintendo Switch 2 game proper, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's dedicated patch makes jumping back in an easy recommend. And that just about does it for our picks of the top 10 best Nintendo Switch 2 games that you can play right now. Obviously, very soon we'll see the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza, but until then, these are our top picks of all the best games to try out with your shiny new Nintendo Switch 2. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to leave it a like and consider subscribing to the All Out Gaming YouTube channel to stay up to date with even more videos like this. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.